All right, how we doing today, Speaker Posse? I know some of you don't know what the heck I'm talking about. If you don't, go on over to my free speaker page called Speaker Posse. It's actually a group here on Facebook. I came on today because I wanted to answer another question. I'm sorry, I'm looking for it right now. Here it is right here. I wanted to answer a question that I've gotten several times. And most recently, somebody asked me, and I'm looking for her name. Wow, don't go live until you have everything in front of you. Oh, here it is. Her name is Gabriela Alvarez, and she's part of my Speaker Posse. Again, it's a free group on Facebook. Check it out. If you've ever thought you wanted to grow as a speaker, maybe you're already speaking and you want to become world class, you want to speak more, you want to speak all around the world, or maybe you just want to have better conversations, or maybe you want to lead your team better. That's what we're all about over at Speaker Posse. So this question from Gabriela Alvarez, she says, I'm going to paraphrase, when someone from the audience asks you something that you have no earthly idea about, like you just don't know the answer to, what the heck do you do? So has this ever happened to you? Have you ever had somebody ask you a question when you're on stage? Maybe you're leading a meeting, right? Maybe you're not on a big stage. Whether you speak to 5 people, one-on-one, or 50 people, or 500 or 5,000, this is something very real that can happen. And what do we do, right? What do we do? Do we freak out? Do we like say we don't know? Do we say we'll get back to you? Well, that's what I'm going to share with you, my insight from my experience, and I'd love to hear your experience as well. If you have another way of operating under this type of potential pressure, first thing I'll say is this: when you get booked to speak, and I'm speaking particularly if you're getting paid to speak. But even if you're not getting paid, that's fine too. The same advice holds true. But before you speak, what I'm going to encourage you to do and invite you to do is make sure that you connect with your host, the person that's putting on the event, and make sure to ask as many questions as you possibly can, right? I have a whole pre-speech interview guide that I ask even before I get the gig to learn a lot about the audience, to learn about what are the potential questions that I would be getting in the audience, right? What is the biggest pain that the audience is experiencing? And then I have another pre-speech interview guide that I do right before, about a week before my speech, to ask even more questions to further customize my speech, to make it really occur for the audience and the people that hire me like this is a fully customized speech, because I want to make sure that I'm really speaking to the pain that they have and to the need that they have. So you want to ask as many questions as possible, and a couple other little side notes. I can't help myself but to give more value here and more content as we're talking. But in these conversations before the speech, right? Ask those questions about what keeps you up at night. Like, what are the things that keep your people up at night, your teams, right? What are the biggest things that they're struggling with? What are the mindset issues that they're having? One of the things I like to ask is, if you were giving this speech and you wanted them to walk away, you wanted your team to walk away with something, whether it be something that they now know or something that they now feel, something that they now think about themselves, about their roles, about the world, about the team, what would that thing be, right? What would that thing be? Because that's what I want to be able to underscore in my speech. That's what I want to be able to get behind and rally around and sort of lace in throughout, or weave in throughout my speech, so that there's that congruence of message, right? From the CEO, maybe they're speaking before me, like the most recent speech I did, the CEO kicked off the day. It was a big employee gathering, annual event, kind of a sales and kickoff meeting for the sales and success teams. And then, you want your message to be able to weave in and be as congruent as possible with what that team is dealing with what that organization or that conference is dealing with. So that's just some kind of side tips here before I fully dive in and answer this question that I posed. And if you didn't hear the question yet, I'm going to announce it again in a sec, but definitely go back to the beginning and listen to the setup for this, because I'm giving you little bits of gold here as a speaker that you can do to really just be more effective on stage and when you get to your actual speaking engagement. Another thing I do is I get there early, as I talk about in a lot of my videos. I always want to get there early. I want to ask as many questions as possible of the people in the audience, right? And also the leaders. Find out what's going on in their world. What are they dealing with right now? What do they deal with that day or that morning or that week, which you probably didn't know that. In fact, you definitely didn't know that if you had your pre-speech interview a week prior to that, right? So you get really fresh scenarios and ideas and problems that people are having, and then a lot of times you can weave those right into your speech. And man, that makes all the difference in the world, because you don't want to be the guy or the girl that shows up and you've got this canned speech, right? Even though a good portion of your speech is most likely going to be something that you've delivered in the past, you want to customize as much as possible, or at least make it occur like as much of that speech is customized for them, even though all you did was ask a few questions and you were interested in the problems they're having, and then you find a way to make your content relevant and your stories relevant and specific to those scenarios. So again, you want to do all that in advance, but now let's get to the question that our friend, again, her name is Gabriela Alvarez, from the Speaker Posse, my free Facebook group here. She asked, what the heck do you do when somebody asks you a question when you're on stage and you don't have a clue what the answer is? It could be a totally off-topic question, which sometimes happens. It could be a question that there's no earthly reason why you should know the answer to this, which has happened to me a few times on stage. Or it could just be a question where, it is in your wheelhouse, but maybe you don't know 100% how to answer that sort of in a politically correct way so that it really lands with your audience. Maybe you just didn't ask enough questions around that particular topic, or you didn't think you were going to get asked anything about that, and you just want to make sure that the way you answer it really lands with that audience. And maybe you just want a little help from the audience, right? So that's exactly what I'm alluding to now is the answer. And that is to ask the audience, right? And sometimes I feel the best person to ask is the person that actually asked you the question. Because a lot of times, two things happen here. A lot of times the person that's asking the question already knows the answer. They just want to hear your feedback around it. So what I'll ask is, that's a great question. What are your thoughts on that, right? And they'll be like, right, they might not be ready for that, but they're a lot of times going to give you some insight into either more insight into the depth of the question, or the little more specifics around the actual question that they have. Or in a lot of cases, they're going to actually give you the answer. They're going to give you what they think the answer is, which is going to give you a talking point. It's going to give you something to then feed off of and share more information about. So that's one thing you can do. And the other thing that is sometimes happening there when you ask them to share more, tell me more about that, is this. A lot of times when somebody asks a question, it's not the real question that they have. In fact, most times, in most of your conversations, right, the question that is asked, maybe even with your spouse or your partner or your teams, a lot of times the first question that they ask is really not their real question. In fact, anyone that's ever been in sales knows that is 1000% true. And you want to ask them to tell you a little bit more about that. Really, that's great. Tell me more about that, or why is that important to you? Because that's going to get to the deeper level or the deeper meaning of their question, the real root question. So that's one thing that you can do. And again, it also buys you a little bit of time, right, as you're speaking and as you're thinking. And it also gives you more information from which to stand upon to then give a really powerful answer, a really meaningful answer for the whole group as well as that person. Now, another thing that you can do when somebody asks you a question, you have no clue of the answer, is just say, you know, that's a great question. What does the group think? Before I give my answer, what does the group think is a really good answer to this question? Or what are your thoughts? And you go out and you ask the audience, you engage the audience. It's so important to engage your audience. Get off the freaking stage, right? Get down into the audience, shake some hands, kiss some babies, give some high fives, and really ask some meaningful questions of the audience, because a lot of times the gold is in the audience. That's why I love doing, I do team building workshops once in a while, and I use games. I use like improv games, and they're so much fun because A, they're so much fun, but B, they're so effective, I should say, because the gold is in the audience. The gold is already there on your team, right? We just have to ask the right questions and give them the authority and the belief that they can actually add value and they can really contribute. So ask the fellow person's teammates in the audience or the other folks in the audience, what do you guys think? Right? Oh, that's great. And then now you have this whole like plethora of different answers, and a lot of times there's a theme that evolves. And now you can add your 90 cents or your 2 cents or whatever you want to add to that to really tie in all the pieces that everybody shared, but then also give your authoritative answer to their question. Again, that can buy you a little bit of time if you're not sure of the answer, but more importantly, it just gives you some great additional content. Now, you've got to be careful because some people might just take you off course. So you've got to really know how to control the audience or manage the audience is maybe a better word. But a lot of times you're going to get so many great things that are said by the audience or by that person that you never even would have thought of. That adds even more value to you as a speaker and even more value to the audience, that they feel like you're more valuable of a speaker because you help them create something valuable. Does that make sense? Right? You help them be a contribution and it makes them feel good. Right? So those are some tips that I would give and some sort of insider secrets from a speaker that speaks quite a bit. And I'm sure a lot of you that are listening, you speak quite a bit as well. And you probably are sitting there resonating like, yeah, that's what I do too. Maybe you have some additional things that you do. So I'd love for you to like this, love this, share this, comment below, share it with your friends, ask your friends what they think. And I want to hear additional questions from you as well about anything you're dealing with as a speaker, whether you're already speaking or whether you're a business owner that wants to grow your business through speaking, or maybe you're somebody that works in corporate or has some sort of job or teaching job, or maybe you have questions about how you can grow to be world class as an influencer from stage, as a presenter, as a speaker, as a teacher, as a trainer. So join the Speaker Posse. You can do that by going over to either speakerposse.com, which just leads you to the free Facebook group here on Facebook, or if you're seeing this on YouTube, come on over to Facebook and check us out at the Speaker Posse. Join and ask questions. I want to answer your questions. All right. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye now.